maybe we should get started.
Yeah.
I am very, very happy to have two new voices for Riverfront here tonight, Matthew Schmeer and Steve Werkmeister.
Yeah.
Sorry. I mean,
Too much wine. Okay.
Oh, no. I'll blame it on that, though. I'll blame it on anything. And I'm going to turn it over to Michelle, who's going to introduce the readers because I can't read anymore. And Michelle, over to you.
Thank you, Eve. And our first reader tonight will be Matthew Schmeer. His work has appeared in Two Hawks Quarterly, The Rush, Heartskill Review, Gyroscope Review, Redactions, Poetry South, Slipstream, Sliver of Stone Magazine, Marathon Literary Review, Really System, Panoply, Indicia, Slippery Elm, Talking River, Surreal Poetics, Cream City Review, Natural Bridge, Two River View, Valparaiso Poetry Review, and elsewhere, including public transit art installations in St. Louis, Missouri. He is the author of the chapbook 21 Cents from Pudding House, published in 2002. And he is a professor of English at Johnson County Community College in Overland Park, Kansas. He holds an MFA from the University of Missouri at St. Louis, maintains many personal writing blog projects, including his current Hot Messes, Poem Shots, Me and Alfred Roanoke, and Notes from a Poem Knot. Please welcome Matthew.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for everyone inviting me to read this evening. I do appreciate it. I'm going to be reading a number of works, some published, some not, mostly from a couple manuscripts in progress. As I like to say, I've been rejected by some of the finest small presses in existence. So that manuscript always seeking a home. And I always like to start reading, usually with a poem about the process of writing a reading. So this is How to Read Poetry. Get drunk. Take off your pants. Sit in a comfortable chair in your underwear. Breathe. Smoke them if you got them. Binge watch Netflix. Take a walk. Rub a cat the wrong way. Reevaluate your life choices. Have a good cry. Clean the toilet. Update all the apps on your phone. Order in Chinese food from that sketchy place with the excellent spring rolls. Tell the kids to sleep over at a friend's. Scrub the yellow out of your shirt pits. Oil the hinges. Unmake the bed. Close the curtains. Then open them again. Eat a bowl of Cocoa Puffs with chocolate milk. Now you're ready. This next one appeared in Two Hawks Quarterly a couple of years ago. It's called What You've Heard is True. I tried to drown the sick calf in the cow pond near the Black Stream last week, but failed. I tied her to the dead oak where the salt blocks hang. She fought me every step. She must have known what I have planned. When she kicked my head in her last lurch with death, I fell and bled on the bank while thick water filled her young lungs. Her scared lulls dulled in the rush of last spring's snowmelt. When they found us that night, she was near death, moored to the tree where I lay with face bruised and nose crushed. Tom said they heard her moan when they pulled up, and then a hush fell as the trees leaned with the wind. He shot her in the head while Jim built a fire. They burned her corpse to ash. The sweet, foul smell stuck to my tongue. They said they wrapped my face in rags, but I saw the flames in dusk's gray glow. This next one's a little weird. So this is statement from the Field Investigators Report, Sullivan, Missouri, June 17th, 1989. Outside the Tasty Freeze, something small and sharp was jabbed in my spine. When I awoke, I couldn't move. My legs were numb. There was blood everywhere. Two of them stood over me, holding something. One of them bit into it. His teeth were sharp and glistened with yellow spittle. I couldn't speak. I couldn't scream. I couldn't feel a thing. When they saw I was awake, the short one stuck his finger in my mouth. It tasted sweet, like apple butter. And he plucked out 2 molars. He put them in a jar and shook them like dice. He laughed. Then the tall one put something over my head and I couldn't see a thing. I felt something scrape the heel of my left foot. When I woke up, I was naked on the floor of my living room. The television spewed static into the air. All my food was missing. My car wouldn't start. I couldn't find my cat for 3 whole damn days. Drive all night. We drive all night looking for sleep. We can't find it. Sleep runs in the opposite direction, out of reach. Sleep is a slippery bastard, eluding us by 1 step or stop. Outside Amarillo, we stop for gas and a cup of coffee. The waitress tells me we just missed sleep by half an hour. Sleep's driving a green Camaro and has some floozy riding shotgun. We thank her with the 20% tip and bolt to our trucks, which sit underneath the aluminum awning rattling with a sudden downpour we hadn't noticed in our hurry. We sit in our cabs and wait. Sleep might be slipping down the road a ways, but we'll catch up. At least we hope. So a lot of folks during the past year and a half of pandemic, I wrote a lot, and I think some of it's good, so I'd like to share some of it with you. This is called My Pandemic. You do not have to clean the dishes. You do not have to make the bed. You can wake, shuffle around the kitchen, make coffee, sit at the table near the window, and watch the sun rise through cigarette haze. Check your phone. Text me your regrets, as I've texted you, as others text each other. Somewhere, sewists fashion denim. Somewhere, children's fill worksheets with the catechism of math, calculating sums of small and needless things. Meanwhile, toilets flush, plumbers plumb, chickens are eviscerated on factory lines. Whatever you think, no matter how petty, the morning opens like a wound to remind you the work still needs doing. The radio announces the wrongness of a world that needs rebuilding. Somewhere, your hammer rusts in silence. Start searching. This one's called Deer. Age is that thing down the road you see coming in your headlights. And you think about swerving, but you keep the car headed straight and hit that son of a bitch head on just to show it who's boss. But the joke's on you, because now your fender is dented and your windshield broken, and the blood on your hands won't go away, no matter how many quarters you pump into the self-service car wash. These next three pieces are from a series of over 250 small vignettes that I've written, featuring a dumb hitman and his partner in crime. And I have to explain it before I get started in it, because it's one of those weird stream of consciousness things, not stream of consciousness, deep in your subconscious things that kind of bubble up because you've been reading too much and watching too much, and your brain is just like bubbling with a stew. And so I had been listening to true crime podcasts. And at the same time, I had been working my way through Richard Stark's series of Parker crime novels, which were written back in the late early 50s, 60s, and up until like the 1980s. And then my daughter had been binge watching Friends, and I happened to like plop down and sit in one of the episodes that had featured Phoebe Buffay's younger brother Frank, who, if you know that character at all, he's kind of like a guy who doesn't have a clue. And then I watched Happy Gilmore. So all of these things kind of coalesced in my brain, and I came up, this voice just bubbled up and started speaking to me. And so I've written over 250 of these things, many of them that you can find on my blog that was mentioned earlier, called Me and Alfred Roanoke. If you Google it, it'll pop up right away. It's one of the few things out there. So the trick of these is that it's one long run-on sentence, and you never hear what this guy's name is. Everybody just calls him Fool. So a little bit of an experimental side, but I've got a couple of these I'm going to read. And they don't have titles. They just have letters and numbers. So this is P3. The last time me and Alfred Roanoke was out making deliveries to the car washes because they was out of soap and liquid wax and that tire shine stuff, there was this big ass spider in one of them supply closets. And I said, I ain't going in there, Alfred Roanoke, because that spider looks mighty fierce. And Alfred Roanoke said, man, it's just a little spider. And I said, nope, it isn't, Alfred Roanoke. That's one big ass spider. And if that big ass spider has decided to make that doorway his home, I ain't going to ask it for rent. And Alfred Roanoke said, fool, it's just a spider. Then Alfred Roanoke reached up to smack down that web, and what do you think that spider did? Well, let me tell you, I never seen a spider jump before, and neither did Alfred Roanoke, as he yelled out, oh, hell no, and smacked his neck. But it was too late to avoid the ER, and that's why me and Alfred Roanoke make fish sticks or net, make the car wash run now. P4. Me and Alfred Roanoke was standing over Lenny Britches, who was bleeding out all over the pavement. And I asked, what you want to do, Alfred Roanoke? And Alfred Roanoke said, okay, man, just grab his legs. So I grabbed Lenny Britches by the legs, and Alfred Roanoke grabbed Lenny Britches by the shoulders, and we dragged Lenny Britches' fat ass off the sidewalk and into the alley. And Alfred Roanoke asked, Lenny, what was you thinking? And Lenny said, I didn't think them Slovak brothers meant it. And I said, oh, them Slovak brothers always mean it, because that's the European way. And Alfred Roanoke nodded and said, damn right. Those Balkan dudes don't mess around. And I said, they ain't Balkan, Alfred Roanoke. And Alfred Roanoke said, what? And I said, Slovakia ain't on the Balkan Peninsula. And Alfred Roanoke asked, man, does that really matter? And Alfred Roanoke said, I don't care what the Slovakians think right now, fool. And I said, well, you should, because look at them Slovak brothers headed this way. And Lenny said, oh man, this hurts. And I said, maybe if you stop talking, Lenny Britches, the air will stay in your lungs. And Alfred Roanoke turned around to face them Slovak brothers, and Lenny Britches wheezed and jerked, and I stood up, because that's when things got serious. S54. A few days after the fire, me and Alfred Roanoke and Orlando Roanoke was working out with Orlando Roanoke's trainer, Smackdown Hastings, because even though Orlando Roanoke was done in the ring, that don't mean Orlando Roanoke was throwing in the towel on staying mean and lean. So me and Alfred Roanoke and Orlando Roanoke was working up a mighty big sweat, beating the bag and jumping rope and doing push-ups and pull-ups and sit-ups and squats and flexes, and I was feeling pretty good. So I said, hey, Alfred Roanoke, why don't you and me go a few rounds? And Alfred Roanoke said, what? And I said, come on, Alfred Roanoke, you ain't worried, are you? And Smackdown Hastings said, man, you's a bigger fool than Alfred Roanoke talks about. And I said, what? And Alfred Roanoke said, okay, man, let's go. So we stepped in the ring and touched gloves. And when I woke up in the hospital 2 days later, there was the nicest bunch of flowers from Alfred Roanoke with a note that said, next time, think before you open your mouth. And that is some of the best advice Alfred Roanoke ever gave me, especially since my jaw was wired shut for 2 weeks. All right, last one. Last one I will make you suffer through. So this is S152. Me and Alfred Roanoke was talking to Creamsicle Johnson, who everybody calls Dreamsicle, because he always talks about all these plans, but pretty much don't do nothing but talk more. Like Dreamsicle said he was going to open himself up a barbershop, but nope, Dreamsicle never did. Or Dreamsicle said he was going to up a corn dog restaurant, but nope, he never did. Or Dreamsicle said he was going to paint his White House green, but nope, he never did. So you can see why everybody called him Dreamsicle. And anyway, Dreamsicle told me and Alfred Roanoke he was going to retire from the North Star plant because he was damn tired of making ice cream sandwiches all day. But me and Alfred Roanoke said we'd be mildly disappointed to have to start paying for our weekly bag of free sherbet cups. And Dreamsicle said, oh, I can arrange that for you with Sugar Cone Pete. But me and Alfred Roanoke ain't betting on it because me and Alfred Roanoke both know they ain't nobody with such a ridiculous name like Sugar Cone Pete. All right. Long way for short dad jokes, I know, but sometimes you got to take inspiration and run with them. All right, I've just got a few more I'll make you suffer through. These are a little bit more serious in turn. This one is called Pantoum for a Marriage. Remember when we used to sleep in, wrapped in each other's arms, legs entwined like vines and trees? We wasted entire mornings in love, wrapped in each other's arms, legs stroking skin against skin. It wasn't like we wasted entire mornings in love doing nothing in bed in those early years, stroking skin against skin. It wasn't like we believed those moments would carry us through. Doing nothing in bed in those early years turned to doing nothing in separate rooms. Who believed those moments would carry us through? Entwined like vines and trees, we turned to doing nothing in separate rooms. Remember when we used to sleep in? After Valentine's Day. Mid-February, and sub-zero skies cloud like lovers scattering malcontent, and the chill pries under doors and windowsills and seeps through drywall. So you dress in layers and huddle under blankets, waiting for the furnace to click back on by the magical wave of the power company, sacked by so much weather, even its Twitter flack gets snarky with cut and paste replies, as if complaining online will make wires jangle back to life. And yes, the cold is temporary. But when you can't feel your toes and the fridge's innards are plopped in snow, what else is there to do but gather around the glow of candles and cell phones playing Scrabble, even though you can't be sure your mother doesn't cheat by double counting triple word scores when you're distracted because you dropped a stitch and have to unravel an entire row and watch your scarf in process unfurl, just like this week, caught in the throat of the world. Thank you.
Matthew Schmeer, thank you so much. I loved all of them, and I especially loved the guy vignettes you did. They are delightful and charming and a bit profound as well, actually. But they're great reading, and thank you so, so much for joining us tonight. I have a couple of short announcements about upcoming readings. Let's see. On December 10th at 8 p.m., 3 of our Riverfronters, Pat Lawson, Beth Gully, and Phyllis Becker will be doing a reading for us, and guaranteed that will be an excellent reading. So please try to come. And then on December 19th, that's a Sunday at 3 p.m. is our Christmas or holiday open mic. come to that if you can too, and read. That would be great. Is Tina or Mary Frances, does anyone or Pat, do you have any announcements for the Writers' Place events coming up?
Well, next week, the 19th, Ellery Tennille, Teresa Lagarde, and I will be reading, and that should be, I think, a really fun reading. Ellery's going to have her ekphrastic poetry. I'm going to have my poetry about the golems, and Teresa will have poetry about events that have happened in her life and in the world. And so please come to our reading. We'd love to have you there. Thanks.
I know that will be a wonderful reading. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, Tina. Okay, if there are any more announcements, if they're not, let's move along.
Eve, can I make two really quick announcements?
Of course.
So the Writers' Place also sponsors the a reading with the Cow River Orchestra at the Westport Coffee House,
Right.
which will be in person. I believe that will be on December 2nd. And there are several readers. I don't remember all their names, but I know Marianne Kunkel is with us and she's going to be one of their readers. I think Malcolm Cook is also going to be a reader, and I apologize.
I think Sylvia is reading. Sylvia, are you reading in that?
Yes, I am.
And then also the Writers' Place is putting together a yearbook. And so anyone who is a member of the yearbook of the Writers' Place by the time we get to December 31st, who would like to submit a work to be included along with their bio is welcome to do that. So all this information is on the Writers' Place website, and I can put that in the chat. So.
Thanks, Beth. That was neat. Look forward to that. Those River Cow readings are always great fun. I greatly enjoy them. Anything else? Anyone else have announcements? Okay. Michelle, over to you for our next reader.
Thank you. Our next reader is Steve Werkmeister. He was born and raised in Nebraska, which is basically Kansas, just norther. He studied medieval and Renaissance literature at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. He has published in various literary magazines over the years and was nominated for a Pushcart Prize a few years ago for the short story Going Home. His collection of short stories, Wrecked, a novel in fragments, is available through Amazon, and many of his poems can be found on his poetry blog, Noonday Devils. He also has a literature-focused blog called Steves of Grass. Steve is a professor at Johnson County Community College and lives with his family in Lawrence. Welcome, Steve.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me. I guess flip me off if you can hear me. Anybody? Okay, that's close enough. Very good. Thank you. And hopefully this night finds you with a full glass in hand and a bottle nearby. I want to start out with a poem called The Winding Sheet. Let me say what you see when you look at me. Something lumpy, dark, and hairy, a wretched tangle, an unhappy reminder, a thing best left forgotten or thoughtlessly misplaced, quietly gone for good. And my ridiculous name, a job title turned plea, desperate in its need to be trusted, the tasteless insubstantiality of Steve combined with the dermal incongruity of Werkmeister. Because I grew up in that kind of town, no one ever beat me up because I'm half German, only half Mexican. Every year in class, the teachers would read my name from the first day roster and look everywhere but me. Some were better at hiding the surprise. Some panicked and broke out into Hogan's Heroes German. Oh, Herr Werkmeister, they'd say. Do you know what Werkmeister means? As if it wasn't a coat I'd been wearing since birth. As if the day my dad disappeared when I was a kid, it wasn't the only thing he'd left. A Texas cop once stopped me, wondering what I thought of Shakespeare, wondering if I dug the art of Basquiat, wondering about my perspective on the collapse of communism and the New World Order, wondering if I'd considered the possibility of life before death. I'm kidding, of course. The cop was wondering what I was doing in that particular neighborhood, 2 blocks from my aunt's house. The cop made the face I'd known from cashiers and girlfriends' dads and airline agents and asked, "Where did you get this name?" My Nebraska license not matching the panoply of possibility my skin suggested. "'Twas the swaddling clothes of my birth," said I. "'Twill be the winding sheets of my death." It was all my dad had to give me. This next one's a prose poem. It's something that happened like in my childhood. I remember for a long time, and I had and I wanted to write about it, but the person like in the poem uses a word that I was extremely uncomfortable with. In the text of the poem, what I did was I took out the I and replaced it with an asterisk. For the reading, I'll just say N-word so everybody knows what that is. It's called America. I was like 7 and easily confused, so I gave her my address. And she said, "That's where you live. Where are you from?" And I still wasn't sure, so I offered her the name of the town of my birth in western Nebraska, a town we'd left before memories blistered my mind. And she said, "No, where are you really from? Like what country?" And I said, "America." And she gave me that look my mom had, like asking somewhere deep in her mind how my dad beat her to the leaving. So I said, "My grandmother's from Mexico." And she said, "Oh, are you a good Mexican or a bad one?" And she was in 5th or 6th grade. And she stood 2 steps above me by the side door of the school at the edge of the playground. And she had hair like Glyndis the Good Witch from Oz, and one of those long Polish names that didn't have any vowels. Her brother was in my class. I was confused. Sometimes they said I was good, but I got in trouble a lot. And my mom said often, "You'll be the death of me yet." I just stood there and waited, and she said, "There's good Mexicans and bad Mexicans, just like there's good Negroes and N-word." I didn't say anything. "It's not racist," she said. "A white person can be an N-word if he's bad enough." I was confused. "You're probably a good Mexican," she said. I just looked at her. I wasn't convinced. "You're kind of stupid, though," she declared, walking out of the shadows and into the sun. This poem's called Detasseling. It was my first job. So sometimes a rush of bodies tearing across the rows, crashing through the corn, 2 or 3 of them honing in on a target, and then a few rows over, just out of eye shot, you hear the beating. You know there will be blood on the bus ride home. Some boy will claim to have fallen, will not come back. The next day, Ronnie will say, "He was just slowing us down anyway. There's more where he came from." And you know he's right, the cheap labor of poor men's children. And you're just glad it wasn't you. The first thing you'll learn is 8 or 10 feet into a row, the corn closes behind you and the field becomes eternal as hell. For a while, you might see the kids in the rows next to yours, maybe even the kids next to them, but soon they're all just noise, disembodied voices and scuffles that seem to come from everywhere. There's no direction here except forward, the leaves nicking paper cuts into your arms and neck. You don't want Ronnie or the other crew leaders to catch you. If they catch up, you're moving too slow. In cornfields, you slog through solid air. You can hear the wind brushing like a god past the tops of the stalks, ignorant of the fact you're down there, stewing in the mesh of mud and leaves. You look like a supplicant, arms held on high, but you're going into junior high and you're detasseling corn. Ronnie says that down in the field, it's hotter than the devil's asshole. You smile, but don't hold his eye. It's almost the 80s. America's sick of losing. It's time for brown kids to learn friendly distance. There are no other jobs for 12-year-olds, and there is no shame, and everyone on the block has done the same. Years later, you'll remember the girl you were too shy to talk to. 12 or 13, strawberry blonde and freckles light as birds riding a high wind. It's her last day, and she doesn't want to be seen. She sits in the 3rd or 4th row, a few seats in front of you. The next morning, Ronnie will say, "She was a stuck-up bitch anyway." And he'll turn up his transistor radio when Rupert Holmes comes on and say, "I like this shit." but it's July afternoon and tears like small blisters slide down her cheeks. Ronnie's in high school and he likes to talk about what he's seen on HBO after his parents have gone to sleep. You know there are hurts so deep they leave no marks, and you don't know what to do, and you don't even know her. You just watch her stare through her reflection as central Nebraska rolls past. Fields impenetrable as fairyland forest, silver irrigation pivots like stripped spines, the ditches, the fences, the hail-scarred signs. Excuse me. This is drive-through poetry. In writing about nothing, I write about everything. I'm not peculiar in this, poets do it all the time. Form throws me, I flounder in rhythm and rhyme, and don't speak as juras or sonnets, I know no art. Poems are not written but recovered, are not read but recognized, but this has all been said before. What is written is not as important as what is left blank. MTV Zen, 4,000 deep thoughts flickering per second. I was listening to a lot of Nick Cave a few years ago. And so I had, of course, a very Nick Cave idea of I wanted to write just a group of poems about just psychos and bad people and stuff like that. So I ended up with a small group. I just wanted to read a couple of those tonight. This first one's called Mr. Ketchum. It's a villanelle. The park is full of ducks this day. Sun gently warming each salty hide. I've come to watch the children play. Mothers with iPhones Facebook away, unaware some bird in the shadows just cried. The park is full of ducks this day. They salute me with latte smiles, but they don't know my blood turns urgent as tide. I've come to watch the children play. Wet thin as weasel, jerk quick as jay, ripe pineys rubbing down the hot slide. The park is full of ducks this day. Mothers chatting code about 50 shades of gray. My trousers blot at the thought of young flesh plied. I've come to watch the children play. You have to be careful not to overstay, lest cautious Humberts have got themselves spied. The park is full of ducks this day. I've come to watch the children play. This one is Austin. Sorry. Ain't no use in lying, it's hard to be sleeping when there's somebody crying from the floorboards under your bed. Every time I ask, Dad says it'll be a day or two, just find yourself something different to do. Might as well go mow the weeds. And Dad says, boy, you got a big imagination, the kind of dreaming that draws to it attention. Teachers and counselors and all manner of trouble. And just my luck, someone will show up with a shovel to see if your fiction's left bones. Now you'll have to tell him you've been feeling bereft. It's been a while now since your mom up and left, without spoken word either since or before. It's as if she just sank through the living room floor. So those are probably to the nicest one. This is actually, this next poem is like my most recent poem, I guess. We moved over the summer, so I haven't been doing like any work, but I wrote this last April. So I kind of wanted to see how it sounded out loud. It's called Softest Words, Sharpest Teeth. Okay. Say death, for instance. Tongue's tip easily slipping from the incisors' fat bellies, alighting on the small saws of the tops of the bottom teeth. Death, barely a breath to empty a life and every life touching it. Some words supple as the flesh of fish, deadly as the bones beneath. Say love, and watch how the tongue hides behind the teeth before turning bashful, the breath rushing forward, the upper teeth dropping down to the lower lip like a gate, the heart at war with itself, the fangs lying in wait. Family, too. A word heavy as ghost, soft as cat, the passive-aggressive gentility of consonants almost smothering the bitter I in the middle. Family, a word that sits over your heart, its claws pushing through your shirt, its claws digging into flesh. Another project that I had over the years was I went to like Catholic school, but you know, I was never really kind of believed. I wasn't very good at it. And and much to my mother's dismay. But I did like the Gospel of John. I was always attracted to that and just the language in that book. So I wanted to write a bunch of poems kind of based on John. And so this is John from John 5:7. It's Bethesda, or the pool where the angel comes down. Some scabbed, some with festering stumps, some oozing pus thick as slobber on a newborn's chin, some crying, some with eyes gummed shut, some being eaten by cancer even as they dream, some sitting in puddles of filth, some singing like canyon wind, some moaning, some talking to memories, and some who just stare, and some who just sweat, and some who can't stop shaking, and some who call for cure, and some for death, and some trying to get just one more breath. The doctor said the devil's in your blood, and he's made hellfire of your lungs, and to die like a human costs money. So I wait. They say the angel comes, sure as the ivy drips, though she stirs the waters in her own sweet time. Besides, what other help comes to people like me? The cure costs money, and a death costs money, and a good Samaritan's push to the pool costs money. And here the crowd grows every day, and waiting, they say, is the only thing free. So, excuse me. And the second one of those is called Cracks. And I guess that the epigraph is, seeing his mother with the disciple whom he loved standing beside her, Jesus said to her, "Mother, there is your son," and to the disciple, "There is your mother." So this is Cracks. And somebody's saying, "This is no surprise," and you half turned, but you realized no one else heard. It was his voice speaking in your head, saying it in your head, saying, "I told you," but it's your 10 seconds behind the world spin. Every reaction a shade truant, and you can't catch up, and you're just pushed along, pushed in front, trying to process what just happened when it's something else. And now you're next to his mom. She's holding it together. You don't see how, if you could just catch up, you would crack up, crack apart, crack from the inside. And now you realize you noticed the flies, but not sure when you noticed them. How long could it be? How long have we been here? And on the ground, ants, and it's too damn hot for spring. Going to be a hell of a summer. This hot already, and the fishing will be rough, and you hate yourself for wishing you could get past the dying to the death. Then there will be time to figure it out, and now just waiting. And he's saying, "This is your mother," and it's real this time. Everyone heard it. You look at her, she gives you a just nod look, and you're still falling back, so you just nod. And you can't see the packs cutting through the canyons, creeping through the cracks in your vision, but you know they're there, waiting for dark. I have another word poem. This one's actually called Words. So, and I ran across this quote. Supposedly Derrida said, "Yes, I have only one language, yet it is not mine." And that just kind of really stuck. And so I wrote a poem about it, like we do when things get stuck. This is Words. No vehicles but the words on loan, ancient words and new, borrowed, not begotten, words plucked from the dappled web of family and teachers and friends. The dried up ink of words and the endless books, the blink of words on screen, the ecstatic words of television, the billboard's Crayola box of letters figuring words and words and words. The words passed down, not mine. The words passing over, not mine. The words tested on, not mine. The words you pay for, not mine. Someone else's luggage filled with someone else's clothes. They said, "Carry this till you're there," so of course I did. It only cost my silence. They said, "Carry this, and by such you shall be known to the others," with the same loaner luggage riding the same conveyor belt. At the end, they take it all back, leaving just the crumbs over your remains, your numbers, your name, maybe a few words to mark your mark in the game. I just have just a couple more. This is one of those, I don't know where this came from. I just kind of started messing around and, just writing. And then, yeah, something kind of walked in. This is called the There. You are wasting my life, he says, sitting next to me on the couch, watching TV, his coat soggy with boredom, his pockets stuffed with the scraps of everything I could have been. You don't even like this show, he observes observantly. I was just flipping through the channels, I say, which is usually enough. You haven't laughed once, and yet there you are. I'm getting irritated. The moths are fluttering inside me, hungry for light. This show confuses cleverness for funny, the pot for the piss. It hasn't earned its pretensions. I'm standing on the ottoman, my finger jabbing at the air. The painted eyebrows of the actors arched like shitting dogs. The writers are the bastards of a thesaurus and jock itch. My screams have hit Al Pacino levels, a prison break of words scraping the ceiling to Rankin Bass dust swirls. I crumple, tears drip, drip, dripping from my chin to my shirt. He watches without words, so what can I do but keep talking? My tears liquefied frustration, my teeth chipped from the bones of the shipwrecked. Where is the there, the there, the there, the there, the there, the there? I can't stop. Please, God, put a quarter on my tongue. The saddest ghosts, he says, are those that never lived. That's stupid, I say, settling back on the couch, eyes lighting back up to the TV. You probably got that from a movie. The show has come back. We watch. I assume he walked in when I wasn't looking, but like the broken clock on the metaphorical wall, I am mostly wrong. He's been here from the beginning. So I just... The last poem, and thank you for being patient. This is honestly the hardest poem I've ever written. This is something I struggled with, both on a personal level and I guess artistic, poetic, or whatever, writing, and just trying to figure out how to write it. In a lot of ways, I think the only way I could justify writing the poem to myself was to make the struggle part of the poem. So it's divided into 7 parts. The name of the poem is 2 Rapes and a Beating. 1. I have a hard time even typing the words, but we were friends, but I loved you. But when I heard, I did nothing. I hid in the silence. I convinced myself it wasn't my business, wasn't what it seemed. Breakups are always messy. Besides, it wasn't like I was there. Even your neighbor, when she told me, said, I just know what she says happened. And I kept my eye on the stain on the wall just past her shoulder. I shrugged. I don't know. It seemed enough. 2. I think I figured if I didn't say what I knew, you knew I knew. Eventually, it would slide away like a bad hangover. I'd seen how quickly rage tore through him, and I knew his reputation, and I knew he'd convinced even himself that it wasn't like you said, that as he drove us back to Lincoln, he'd work himself up to, you believe me, right? And I'd nod, holding on to a silence conformable as a shawl. 3. I'm not that stupid. I know tonight's guilt won't scratch yesterday's pain, no matter how badly it itches. 4. What was it, a year later? I heard you were back with him, all distance and the longing heart and pop song bullshit, but I hadn't seen you in months and he was having a party, so I went. We ended up in a bedroom together. We were drunk. We sat on the bed and talked like we used to, but you began to cry, said you wanted to die. I sat there dumb. He'll kill me one of these days anyway. And I had nothing honest to say. I just held you as you cried. You wanted to die. And like an idiot, I promised everything would be okay. I told you to trust me, to just sleep. Tomorrow would be a new day. And like a fool, I left you there alone. I went home. He left purple orchid bruises all over your body like a litter of last week's prom corsages. They said there was so much blood he had to throw away the sheets. They said he thought we'd been fucking. It took 3 guys to pull him off you, drove the couple hours back home alone. Tears and blood soaking into the car seat. I didn't call. I told myself you needed the time and silence. Who was I to rip up scraps? 5. And everything I'm leaving out, even now as I carve this poem, entire Tolkien histories disappearing in the gaps between words and the breaks between lines. 6. There'd always been the rumors in the hallways, the locker rooms. It took me years to notice it had always been the pretty girls on the margins. Nice girls flattered by the notice. Predators manage risk, and every high school has its herds. We didn't need to be told who could be taken. Besides, it was the 80s if a girl's that drunk, or it was the 80s, look what she's wearing, or it was the 80s, she should have known better. You know how women are. It was the 80s. We need to keep our heads down. Later to act like we didn't know. But we knew. 7. They say write what you fear. And I fear as I write this now, a poem's just as self-serving as silence. Rape is violence and control, but so is poetry, determining which words hit best the eyes and ears. I can still hear your voice, you know, after years. And it's been decades, and you'd be right. We were kids, just kids, better to forget. But I just keep going, carrying the pain and the fear, avoiding the eyes of the coward in the mirror. Thank you.
Steve Werkmeister, I think
Ma'am.
that deserves a moment of silence.
Sorry.
Seriously, very powerful. Thank you so much for reading for us, and thank both of you. You are both absolutely wonderful. We can stay, I think, Carl, can we stay a while longer if anyone has questions for our authors or comments?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so we'll open it up now to anyone who has any comments or questions for our wonderful authors. But before I back off here, I have to thank Beth Gully for introducing me to two wonderful writers. I've greatly enjoyed the evening, and thank you so much for reading for us.